Hey, ain't no place like home. One of my favorite sayings, one of the favorite things I ever heard somebody say is, ain't no place like home. But what is your definition of home? Is your definition of home where you was born at, where you was raised, or where you became who you are at, or where you currently live? Your mailing address, your first address. It's just really all up for debate. What's home? So when I started thinking about like what's my home and where I'm from, I started thinking about like my upbringing. But my fondest memories in life were, you know, a 7 year period when I lived in LA. So when I talk about home, it's like, what's home? My roots of Tennessee, or where I feel like I became an adult. Because when I lived in Tennessee, my life was full of listening to others, being respectful, things of that nature. And I use those things as I got older and improved myself. But a lot of times we forget that. And when you forget that and you find it again, sometimes it's home. I know a lot of people who, when I joined the military, that was their first time being away from what they consider home. But for me, when I got stationed in LA, I used to go to LA every summer. So it was the norm for me. California's the norm. I'm used to running the streets of Riverside and stuff like that. I'm used to being in the valley. So when I had a chance to experience those things, I was really happy. And I took full advantage of those things, and I became more comfortable. And I took those experiences with me as I got older, because when I was in California, my thought process was, I know this place. But what I later learned was this place is way bigger than I thought. So do I really know this place? No. So it opened up my eyes to learning about the world. And what I learned about the world is forever changing. Those spots that I experienced when I was younger, those same locations look totally different. Like, for example, I used to be in Riverside and Fontana and all those places, and those places was like the greatest thing ever. But when I got older and I moved to California, maybe 15 years later, I learned that, those same places have expanded, and those expansions really showcase what a city has to offer. And that's what I like about it. And really critical when you're thinking about, home. So once you get away from the concept of home, you start thinking about, where you like to be at. What's your favorite place? What is your identity? And that's when I become a Texas guy. I have my family in Texas. A lot of things I learned. And those things I learned in Texas were super important to my development because it taught me about being responsible on a different level compared to when I was in Tennessee. When I was in Tennessee and I had to be responsible, totally different, because when I was in Tennessee, I had my family and my close people. And those close people to me were close, but once I became an adult, my definition of close people were totally different. So, like, when it comes to my favorite city now, my favorite city is not in Tennessee. My favorite city is in Florida. Miami, Florida. I like Miami, Florida, because when I go to Miami, Florida, it's like full of happiness, and it reminds me of LA without going to LA. When you go to LA and you live in LA, it's totally different from experiencing LA as a visitor. When I first went to LA, it was fun the first couple of years, but once I started living there and started looking at the bigger picture of LA, it changed my whole perspective of LA, which is nothing wrong with it. It's a good place to visit, but I don't want to live there. So I definitely try to go visit every other year. But, my least favorite city, I don't have too many of those, but my least favorite city would have to be, I would say, maybe, I would say Houston. You know, actually, you know what? No, not Houston. I don't like Dallas. And I think what I don't like about Dallas, I had a lot of negative experiences in Dallas. And there's nothing wrong with Dallas. It's just, out of all the cities that I could explore, I'm least enthused by Dallas because me being a sports fan and me being into sports, I thought of Dallas a certain way, you know, Cowboy City. But what I later learned was Dallas is not a Cowboy City. It's actually Fort Worth. Fort Worth is the real Dallas City. And that changed my whole perspective on things. And when it changed my perspective, I was like, man, it's not even, you know, real Dallas. This is a totally different world, you know? And when I started thinking about the different world that it led, it just made me think about, like, it's a bigger world out there than what I think. I need to explore and take time to get to know and learn about places before I start having a prejudgment of these places. So yeah, really important you're thinking about your favorite city, your home, and your least favorite city. You want to give these places a chance. You know, you want to give these the opportunity to be something. You don't want to always get caught up in the perception of something. You know, you want to let it be and become what it is. You know, you don't want it to always be something that is not because you're thinking that it's something. You know, you want to establish yourself and create something. You don't want to take what it is and be like, oh, that's all it has to offer. All right, peace out, holla.